things are starting to ramp up for the midterm elections. We are now starting to see a little bit more information coming out that could give us a decent insight into exactly what we're looking at for the results in the coming year and a half or so. Now, we've already have seen remnants of this take place in 2020, but now we're looking at this also being a lot more clear in 2022 as far as it goes for the way that these results will be. What are we looking at here specifically? So what's going on is that it's this new poll that actually came out talking about crime rates and specifically what they mean, how important they are to the voters in these different areas. So the Democratic polling firm Navigator Research released a weekly survey which asked voters which issues they rated as major crises. So the first one, so on the most of the 14 issues tested, from the coronavirus pandemic to inflation, Republicans and Democrats differed sharply over their significance. For instance, 70% of Democrats still see the pandemic as a major crisis. That doesn't surprise anybody because all of their news outlets and everything they look at is telling them that it's a major crisis. They need it to be a major crisis, basically. But only 30% of Republicans agree, which makes sense. So for the first time, crime ranked ahead of the pandemic as the top issue for all voters, he continued. Even more surprisingly, it was an issue that voters of both parties ranked highly. 57% of Republicans called the issue a major crisis, while 52% of Democrats concurred. Most significantly, 70% of African American voters called violent crime a major crisis. In other words, this spells major problems for Democrats in 2022. That's basically the gist of what's going on here. If the voter base, specifically the black voters, are waking up and realizing, hey, this defund the police stuff was really a bad idea, then Democrats are not going to have a fun time in 2022. Because what we're seeing has been a historic rise in crime. Now, I don't care what Lori Lightfoot has to say about that because she's lying about the issue. We've seen a historic rise in crime in Chicago, Detroit, all of the major Democrat-run cities. It's been there because they constantly have, when they weren't pushing defund the police, then they're saying, well, we don't respect the police because, you know, the shootings of these other criminals that we can't really even justify in our own reasoning of why they shouldn't have happened. Because trust me, all of those situations that they're pointing to were justified. But they're taking this and they're using those narratives to devalue the importance of police in the society, the communities that these different cities are in. And then they're surprised that the criminals are like, hey, we're going to take advantage of this. I mean, during certain protests, during Juneteenth, remember, I was playing clips where they were on top of police cars, not getting arrested. Literally dancing on the hood of police cars and nobody does anything. And they're surprised that there's a crime surge. Now, the thing is that Biden reportedly committed to sending even a federal strike force to the city of Chicago during July 4th weekend because of the violent spike in crime. Once again, he won't say much of anything about that. He hasn't even mentioned a rise in crime because that's the one thing that Democrats know that they can't fix. They can't fix it. The only and most obvious solution to fixing a high crime rate is more police. The one thing that Democrats have painted themselves into a corner and can't get out of. How are they going to get out of that narrative? They were the exact same ones trying to push this for the entirety of last year. There's no way that they're going to be able to dig themselves out of that hole at this point. And the fact is that people want to feel safe above all things. I don't think that they care so much, some of these people in these cities about Democrat, Republican, or whatever it is. At some point when you are hearing gunshots at night, at some point where your car is getting robbed, when crimes start hitting close to your neighborhood, then all of a sudden your issues and how you vote is probably going to change. Because you can't keep having Democrats in charge that have been in charge of these cities for 50 years or longer in many situations doing nothing. Doing absolutely nothing but encouraging the crime and then going on TV and then lying to your face. If you just got robbed, if someone that you knew just got shot, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't take it very kindly to have someone like Lori Lightfoot on TV talking about how crime is actually down. Yeah, totally. Even though the numbers are an absolute, or show the opposite of what she's actually saying, of course. Because Lori Lightfoot's a liar. She'll say whatever it takes to make her city seem like it's not horrible, but it is horrible. Make no mistake about that. You just watched a clip from The William Hall Show. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.